The story began with the appearance of the Empress of Chiron, Kalin Kurthamis. She was sitting on a luxurious throne, with one leg on top of the other. She had blonde hair, golden eyes, and a dark blue cloak that hung down to the floor. The mistress said that someone could decipher the same ancient language. A girl with pastel pink hair, who was dressed in a long blue dress, appeared before her. She swore she was telling the truth. The owner held out her hand and called the secretary. The man began to move towards the lady. He had blonde hair tied in a ponytail and was dressed in a luxurious suit. He had an unknown book in his hands. A book with strange pictures and a lot of text was opened in front of the girl. She was asked to read a few lines. She started reading. There it was said that durability depends on size and density, and then it continued that emeralds of lords have the effect of lowering the body temperature of their wearer. The lady stood with the book in her hands and added that if the text is translated into the Charonian language of our empire, then that is all. Kalin was shocked and said that even her imperial linguist could not decipher this ancient Anglorian text. She thanked him and named her Lady Arwen. As it turned out, her name is Sisha Arvin, who is the daughter of Marcus Arvin. The lady closed her eyes. She was not surprised by the Empress's words. On the contrary, she knew that she would be able to impress her. Angloria is an ancient empire that ruled the whole world 5,000 years ago. It was said that she had enormous magical power, but suddenly, and for unknown reasons, collapsed. Now she lives only in legends. Kalin marveled at the fact that a 20-year-old noble lady was able to decipher the already forgotten and dead language as Anglorian. Sisha thought in her mind that it was easy for her, because this very ancient language is nothing but her native, modern Anglorian. She assured herself that she had to find a way to survive in all this confusion, but it clearly scared her. The mistress appointed her to be responsible for deciphering Anglorian texts, which Lady Arwen definitely did not count on because she became even more frightened than before and apologized to Her Majesty about this. The Empress said that she would give her a post at the palace. The lady asked again if it was true. History is transferred to the past and the story begins. Sisha was also desperately looking for a job in her past life. She asked to be allowed to tell about what happened to her during the past month. 1 month ago, modern world. In her past life, she was an ordinary girl who was not much different from others. She had brown hair, brown eyes, and was wearing a gray t-shirt and a dark gray jacket. That evening, she thought that the stars seemed especially bright. The lady was only looking for a job in the specialty English literature. The girl asked the stars to help her write a good resume that would allow her to find a job. Her phone had a tab open with the title, "The Emperor Doesn't Choose Flowers." She thought that it was a pity because she should have finished this short story. Suddenly, a star lit up too brightly in the night sky. Lightning struck her. She was covered with a yellow-white light. She screamed and dropped the phone from her hands. 2 passers-by turned to the sound of the explosion and screams. It was a boy and a girl. She cried out in fear. The phone hit the asphalt. Someone screamed in fright that the girl had been struck by lightning. The heroine was sitting in the middle of the road, all black with ash from the impact. Passers-by crowded around her. They tried to shout to ask if she was okay, and someone called 911. So is this the end? Above her stood a group of terrified people, one of them begging the service to hurry up. Suddenly she opened her eyes. Her hair was electrified from the shock. It was as if she was half dead. Someone from the group of people asked if the girl had regained consciousness. Others answered that it was similar to that. The lady closed her eyes and sank into thought. And this is what she gets for trying her best to make ends meet. Thoughts echoed in her head that if only she had been given another chance. The girl found herself in the dark, lying on a purple cloud. She seems to have been swimming in the dark for a while, though, until something in the distance caught her attention. She appeared in the fire, looking like Sisha Arvin, who was asking herself if she saw a person in front of her, holding her hands near her face. The girl thought that the person was in pain and whether she could help her. She looked very surprised and scared. It was at that moment that she was struck by something more powerful than lightning. Sisha held her hands in front of her, all black and dirty from the impact. She was very hot, too hot. When she opened her emerald eyes again, she asked herself why everything was still so hot. Mrs. Arvin was frightened and cried out. What is happening to her? Everything was on fire everywhere. There was a cry for help from the room. She begged to help her. But unexpectedly, someone did fulfill her request. the girl was instantly covered with a sheet. A handsome man was standing in front of the heroine, and gray smoke was wafting with her under a large piece of cloth. Drops of tears flowed from her eyes. She was happy and surprised at the same time that the fire was finally extinguished, and the hand of the savior was hanging on her shoulder. Suddenly her eyes lit up, as if she was struck by the unknown. On the contrary, she was surprised that she had seen it before. Sisha took a step forward, not understanding what was happening. There were many questions in her head. What is going on? Did it flash instead of a lightning strike? The man lifted her face by her chin. She pondered over her savior. He had black hair that glinted with a blue-purple hue. Eyes were purple in color. He was dressed in a luxurious suit, red trousers, a white shirt with a round collar and a toad. A gilded barred stone hung around his neck. Lady Arwen looked at him in surprise, most likely guessing who was standing before her. She called his probable name. The girl read the short story, The Emperor Does Not Choose Flowers Twice. Her savior is too similar to Leip, the second hero of the work. She was so sure because his face was on the cover of the book. If she is not mistaken. The man looked at her curiously, and Sisha herself shouted in her mind, did she end up in an affair? Suddenly he spoke to her in Coronian, asked if she planned to burn the estate to the ground. The girl began to fuss and clumsily excuse herself by saying that it was all a mistake and that she did not intend to set arson. The room was covered in dirt and ashes. They still stood opposite each other. Sisha reflected that she had never heard this language before, but at the same time she understood every word he said. Suddenly someone's memories appeared, where someone spoke to Leip. When asked if he proves that he has magic, will he trust in response? However, this story did not belong to her. This vision belonged to the true owner of this body. She realized that she was inside a novel, occupying someone's body. The man put a finger to her neck. She clearly tensed up. Everything that happened confused her. Suddenly, Leip abruptly turned and walked away from her, leaving her even more confused. He headed for a drawer on the other side of the room. Pan took out exquisite golden scissors, holding the hilt with his fingers and two folded blades with his other hand, approaching the girl, which frightened her even more, and again they stand opposite each other. Sisha looked at the scissors as if they were going to kill her right now. Leip took her hand and asked her not to misunderstand him. The atmosphere was tense. He held the scissors to her charred locks and smiled sweetly, assuring her that he was no threat to her. The man brought the blade even closer to his hair, explaining his actions by saying that it must be done. Meanwhile, Sisha was already not herself. She was very nervous. Her face was already sweating because of excitement. In her mind, she screamed that nothing would happen now. Hold on, the girl thought to herself, until the first strand immediately fell from her head. Soon, most of her burnt and damaged hair was cut off. Such a familiar feeling, thought Sisha. After finishing the haircut, Leip calmly wiped the scissors, as if nothing had happened. He said that he only cut off the part of the hair that was damaged by the fire. Pan continued that if she came home with her hair cut off, the two of them would be in big trouble. And the girl herself was holding the back of her head. Her ash-black hand held her cut pink lock. She still didn't understand what was happening. Sisha looked in horror at her chopped strand. Her new haircut became so short that it did not even touch her ear. She thought, did he just take and cut off her hair? Lady Arwen spoke uncertainly to her husband and stated the fact that he simply took and chopped off her hair, and he himself remained calm and confident, giving her the golden scissors with the words that it was a sign of his gratitude for her visit. Leip closed his eyes and smiled sweetly again and asked her to come home safe and sound. He approached her and called her by name. Lady Sisha Arwen. What? The girl thought about it, and Leip simply left her with these thoughts. She just realized that he called her Sisha, which confused her even more. There was a tense atmosphere in the room. Thoughts about her being Lady Arwen echoed in her head. The story began. A hall with huge arches, in the middle of which were two silhouettes. An unknown girl stood with a sword in her hands, and the boy swore a knee before her. This is a twisted romance novel where a prince pretends to be a knight of an emperor who has conquered his country. Sisha knows every character in this novel. The main character is Kalin, who ascended the throne after leading the Chiron Empire to victory. In order to avenge his homeland, Prince Sidian pretends to be the bodyguard of the mistress. But very soon he finds himself on the border between hate and love. There is also the mage Leip, who loves Kalin very much, but that's not all. Sisha Arvin is barely mentioned in this story. The girl was sitting across from her husband. They were in an elegant room. The man spoke to the girl, saying that their home had lost her when she was still a child. They had no idea that she grew up among Christians. As it turned out, she was the lost daughter of this house. The husband was very happy that the lady returned to the Arvin family. "And for the well-being of the family," he said. Then the order sounded. Sisha had to keep quiet about her magical abilities. It turns out she was a wizard in an empire where all magic was frowned upon, but hiding wasn't the answer. The story goes back to the events in the hall with Empress Kalin, where Lady Arwen was appointed to a position in the royal palace. The mistress spoke to her. She talked about the fact that we ourselves are free to choose how to use our abilities, and living in a world where magic is considered a curse. But it would be a great opportunity to find the ability to use it in the interests of the empire. Sisha waved one hand to the side and folded the other into a fist, and said that magic could be useful for the country of Chiron. In the hall hung a green tapestry with a coat of arms. It was yellow-blue in color, inside which was a white wolf, and beneath it was the inscription Chiron, letting it be known to whom this emblem belonged. Lady Arwen continued her work and addressed Her Majesty. She said that the time had come when magic could help her strengthen the position of her possessions. Also, Sisha made a promise that she would find traces of the ancient empire of Angloria. Kalin, sitting on the throne, waved one hand to the side. She agreed to give magic a chance, and also gave Lady Arwen a month to find evidence that she could be used to her advantage. However, the mistress's kindness did not last long. Her face immediately became determined. If Sisha fails, she will lose her tongue for daring to lie to Her Majesty. However, the girl was so confident in her abilities that she turned to the Empire with such a proposal, and as a result, the door opened. Suddenly, Leip's voice was heard. He asked as he stood with a book in his hands, wondering what brought Lady Arwen to his estate. Let's return to memories about the plot of the novel. Sisha, who was shocked that Leip denied her love. She cut off her hair and committed suicide in the mountains. This is just a small detail of the story. Suddenly, the hand mirror falls to the floor. The sound of broken glass can be heard from the room. To Sisha, she was very worried about the lady and asked if she was injured. Meanwhile, the girl was sitting on a luxurious sofa covered with a red silk cloth. The same golden scissors were lying on the table in front of her. The maid looked very confused and scared. She said that she had better not strain herself, as she had recently been ill for 10 days in a row. As it turned out, the maid's name was Lena. Sisha assured Lena that everything was fine, and that mirror was just a coincidence and nothing more. After arriving from the Lepa estate, she fell ill and lay in bed for 10 days. During this time, she was haunted by memories of Lady Arwen's past. In the end, the girl came to terms with such participation, but she had no idea that Sisha had made a deal with the Empress. Kalin will really tear out her tongue if she does not fulfill her promise within a month. She hoped that she would survive if she was away from the mountains. Sisha jumped up and trembled from such desperate thoughts. The story returns to the room with the maid. Lena sighed heavily and said that it would not work that way. As it turned out, Sisha lied about the fact that her hair was cut by unknown thugs, not Leip. That's why Lena shouted that she would take revenge on these scoundrels and give them a verdict. Lady Arwen assured him that everything was fine, and there was no need to expose himself to danger. The girl was lost in thought. Now that she has become Sisha, it is necessary to put an end to fake rumors. The golden scissors were still lying on the table. In fact, Lady Arwen approached Leip purely for business purposes. No romance. Most likely she died while searching for magical artifacts. She thought to herself about her hair. Sisha was angry. Who would have thought that they were cut off by Leip himself? Lena turned to Milady. She handed her a doll with orange hair and asked if she would accept it from her. This is a wish doll that the maid bought from a street vendor. As they say, she has to fulfill wishes. The maid stood with the toy in her hands and added that her wish for Lady Arwen's speedy recovery had failed. Then, continuing with the fact that this gift can help grow her hair. In Sisha's memories, her maid was a very decent and kind person. She was always smiling in memories. Lena never looked down on her because of her life in a Christian family. Besides, she was the only servant who helped her. The problem was that Sisha rarely listened to her, but she knew better. She always assured Lena that her choices would always work out to her advantage. Lady Arwen held the doll in her hands, thinking that it was a gift of fate to have someone around who genuinely cares for you. Sisha spoke to the toy. She addressed her as a cute wish doll and all the other deities, asking her to return her hair. There was a grave silence in the room. The appearance of these rooms was like a work of art. Lena asked to try again, but this time you have to sing a request to the doll. Sisha shook her while singing her plea. It wasn't loud enough, so the maid said to try better, and this time much louder. Lady Arwen did just that. "Even louder," said the maid with hope for this attempt. The girl obeyed and repeated. With all her confidence and with all her might, she shouted at the doll, repeating her request. Hard to believe. But it worked! This is a real miracle. Sisha's hair instantly grew back as if it had never been cut. Lena pondered that the doll might be a gift from God, while Lady Arwen doubted it. Sisha ordered the maid to prepare the carriage. She was clearly inspired by this event. The girl took it as a sign. Now she can't just sit and wait for her tongue to be torn off. She also asked Lena to bring her a dress for walks. The maid was very happy that her lady was in a good mood and immediately began to carry out orders. A luxurious carriage left. Sisha was dressed in a light-colored dress and a hat with a bow. She anxiously said that Kaylin was just a monster because she wanted to cut out her tongue. However, the Empress is very beautiful and self-confident. She is always her favorite character. But the fact that the mistress always keeps her word remains a fact. She has 3 weeks left, in which time she can escape, but she will never be able to hide. After all, Kaylin is the Empress of Chiron. She has eyes and ears everywhere. Sisha resolutely hit her leg with her fist. There is only one possible way. You need to find a magical place. In a few months, Leip must discover a secret place under the lake, namely the Library of Ancient Anglia, which contains a lot of magical books. Only he can decipher the ancient language, the girl thought with cunning. As Sisha, she could nudge him in that direction. In this way, she can save her life, and Leip himself will find the library earlier than he should have. She mentally called him for a conversation, just the two of them. He assured that only the mirror and the carpet were damaged and nothing else. An unknown gentleman spoke to him and asked what the matter was. The magician explained that he had goosebumps for no reason. Pan offered to call a doctor, but Leip rejected this offer because, according to him, it was just a cold, a kind of intuitive reaction. He has a premonition that something will happen very soon. He was nervous and depressed at the same time. A drop of sweat was running down his face from all these experiences. The magician added that something very scary and troublesome would happen. Cafe Sun, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The worker had already seen the 10th dream. It was so boring work. Suddenly, the guest's conversation with himself was not heard from the hall. Sisha asked herself, Leip will definitely come? The last day of February, she read that he would visit this cafe today, or was it a mistake? The girl thought that it would be better for him to accept her offer. Meanwhile, from Worries, nervously turning the handle. In the novel, the real Sisha repeatedly sent letters to Leip's estate, but each time she received nothing. It all reminded the girl of being rejected after a job interview, but she couldn't blame him for that. Lady Arwen had indeed burned my lord's office to the ground. Suddenly, Sisha dropped her pen and cried out in surprise, thinking that this sign hinted that it was time for her. She still could not find it, but looking under the table, the search brought its result. However, luck was clearly not on her side. Because Leip sat down on the table under which the girl was now, she covered her mouth with her hand from all the horror that was happening now. But she did not lack determination to decide that this was a great opportunity to talk with my lord. Out of joy, she grabbed the pen and blushes even appeared on her cheeks. Leip was calmly sitting at the table, but in a moment he felt something grab his leg from under the table. As if nothing had happened, Sisha climbed out of the tablecloth and shouted that it was Lord Cayley, pretending that she didn't expect to meet him here at all. The milord's face was burning with horror and fear because someone, but he definitely did not expect such a surprise. Silence. Lady Arwen worriedly explained to him that her pen had rolled under the table. He stood up and wished her to enjoy his tea. The girl mentally couldn't believe that he just took it and ran away, but she had no intention of leaving it as it was. Heading after the Lord, Sisha again, but now deliberately dropped her pen behind him, waiting for a reaction. Leap was clearly annoyed by this situation, but continued to ignore her. The gentleman moved to another table as if nothing had happened and did not comment on the situation in any way. What made the girl go crazy, and because of the overflow of emotions, she stepped on the same handle with her foot. Unable to bear all this, Sisha, almost without shouting, said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Leip remained just as indifferent to her, only raising his cup of tea. The girl was not herself. Mentally, she was angry with him, because she herself did not want to see him and talk to him, but it was already too late to give up. Lady Arwen clenched her hand into a fist, holding back all her rage at the Lord. She doesn't want to get close to Leap, but the story is based on the plot of the novel. The Lord wandered along the shore of the lake, remembering his mother, until suddenly he noticed the irregularities in the water flow, and as a result found the Library of Angloria. This is the only description from the work. Sisha had to find out more about this library, because she had no choice but to brazenly pester him now. Lady Arwen grabbed her hat and apologized profusely to my lord for what had happened to his office. She decided to let the tears go with her feminine wiles and added that it was too rude of her to barge in on him without warning. Lord just glanced at her. Sisha took this as a good sign, because she thought that her tears really affected him and were able to move such an impregnable fortress as Leap. She had already begun to believe that he was no longer angry with her. Now we need to get down to business. It's time to turn the plan into life. Sisha was convinced of this. The girl spoke without hesitation. She knew that Leip was on the verge of making a deal with Viscount Debris. Codename, you know what you want to know. Sisha said that it was necessary to break off all possible business relations very urgently, to which the Lord assured her not to interfere in her business. The girl was not going to leave it like that, and added that she was sure that he would change his mind when he told all the details. Baron Dogged is a distant relative of the Viscount's wife Debris, who plans to illegally extract and export the skins of endangered wolves and protect the church. Sisha continued to cross herself before the Lord. If the thieves are caught, there will be an uproar, and not only in the Empire, but also in the entire continent. The Baron is unlikely to be a family member if he is a distant relative of the Viscount's wife. This is definitely an excuse in case he does get caught. The girl did not stop and continued to tell. They would certainly never acknowledge each other in public, but the Viscount and the Baron had studied together at the academy. At the same time, these two were quite close during their student years. Sisha continued her story. The Debris family was known for their foreign trade, so it's likely that the Dogged family will be in charge of poaching while the second house Smuggles hides out of state. Leip asked if she had any proof of this. Is it really that important? The girl thought. She let him know that she could see how he didn't believe a word she said. Leip only glanced at her. Sisha thought about the fact that she really had no evidence, because in the novel, Leip investigated all this on his own. Meanwhile, the Lord himself put his hand to his chin and thought, Lady Arvina said it was all by way of an apology for all the chaos she had caused in his office, and added that she had even more secret information, to which Leip questioned her. Suddenly, Lord Kalin got up from the table and did not answer the girl for this strange behavior. He came closer to her and started to smile sweetly again, which caused the girl to blush as she mentally tried to understand what the Lord was doing. At some point, thoughts about a kiss flooded in. Instead, he looked at her hair and asked if it was a wig. Sisha coldly replied that she did not. And was that all he wanted to say to her after that smile? He could ask literally anything. She was already beginning to doubt whether she had gone too far. Leap asked if he could touch her hair, to which she agreed, but only if she didn't plan to cut it off again. The plot moves to Arven's house, a 4-story white palace decorated with exquisite columns and a garden next to it. The unknown man spoke to Lena. He heard that a carriage left the territory without his permission. Mother went abroad as an ambassador, and father went east to train knights. The man added that there was only one person left in the house, meaning Sisha. Lena began to excuse her mistress, because she is already an adult and has her own head on her shoulders to make decisions. She also has full freedom to leave the estate whenever she wants. Pan stopped her. He turned and rudely told the maid that no one had given her the right to think. As it turned out, his name is Billo Arvin, who is the firstborn of this house. He had light blonde hair and golden eyes. Billo smiled slyly and said that it is the duty of a good brother to guide his sister to the right path, even if it means taking educational measures. He added that he was looking forward to Sisha's return. Lady Arwen screamed, "Stop touching my hair," to which Leap said that it really wasn't a dream. The girl sarcastically replied that, of course it was her hair, she grew it, with the help of a wish doll. She explained that this toy will grant any wish you wish, if of course you pray to it. Sisha was mentally angry because the fact that he is the hero of the novel does not give him the right to touch her hair. Does Leap at least understand how it looks from the outside? The girl held the doll up to his face to tell him how cute it was. He definitely didn't like it. Suddenly she came to the realization that Leip takes the second male role for a reason. It seems that he does not care about appearance, but what lies behind it? Sisha said that she would give it to him, which of course he refused. This was the expected reaction from him. Leap tried to refuse this idea, but the girl insisted on it too strongly and did not hear refusals. Moreover, the doll has already left her hands, and she cannot take it back. Come to think of it, the Lord is the only character with whom she can communicate so easily. They both lost their parents in an accident and are trying to prove their worth to those around them. The whole world is against them, as it was with her in her true dimension. There should have been something. Sisha smiled sincerely and said that she hoped that this doll would fulfill his wish. Leip was shocked by these words and said that it was time for him to go. The girl anxiously asked that it was time. The lady tried to stop him because she had not yet had time to tell him something important, to which the Lord replied that he had no time for her story and they would leave it until next time. Sisha objected to him and maliciously asked if there would be a next time at all. Leip turned to her and said what would happen if her information was supported by reliable facts. The girl said that she had information about the Empress and her intentions. If he believes her, then he knows where to look for her, and she will be waiting. As they say, a good start is the key to success. She managed to reach him, and this is only the beginning. Sisha returned to her estate and wondered if this had become too important an event, because she had no idea that everyone would be so nervous about it. Something seems wrong here. A voice was heard following the girl. It was Billo who said that he was glad to see her back. She definitely didn't expect this. He approached his sister and began to lecture her about the fact that she should not leave the estate without his permission, lest anyone find out about her magical abilities. Without saying anything back to him, Sisha began to close the door on him, to which Billo reacted too strongly and shouted that she should never close the door on him again. Lord Arwen took his sister by the shoulders and pulled her along, saying that he was very worried about her, especially since their parents were not at home right now. That is why she is under his protection. Not understanding what was happening, Sisha nervously asked about it. Take the hell away from the defense. As it turns out, Billo is the nice son of the Arvin house. In other words, when Sisha found out the true lineage of this family, she learned about him, the brother she had never seen. In the middle of the room stood an easel with a picture of a family. You don't have to sit so meekly because you will be depicted in the family portrait for the first time, her brother spoke, asking her not to be so nervous because no one needs much from her because she lived as a commoner. Sisha trusted him. Her brother told her how to pose better and also asked her to smile more often. In fact, she trusted him so much that she even trusted him with the biggest secret she kept from the world. However, the truth is that Billo just wanted to keep her on a short leash, especially after he found out her secret and started behaving completely differently. Suddenly, her brother brought her back to the real conversation and asked if she was listening to him, sarcastically adding that her maid was ordered through her mistress, to which Sisha replied too emotionally and asked to repeat. He justified himself that he was not a torturer and simply sent him to the laundry room. The girl objected to him and said that she had no right to do so because Lena belonged to her, not to him. Billo folded his hands and continued arguing with his sister. He had already told her not to raise her voice at him because he was behaving like a commoner. Also, She did not go to the non-potent's tea party, which I spoke about earlier, because connections are everything in a higher environment. Sisha left without warning, did not keep her promise, and could not behave as a lady likes. It won't work like that. Her brother ordered her to write a letter of apology immediately. Sisha shouted that she was no longer a child, to which he also responded by shouting that she was his younger sister. The debt of the eldest child in the family obliges him to punish the younger ones when they misbehave. The lady turned her back on him and said that it was like beating peas against a wall. She didn't want to waste time. However, dear brother did not stop. He heard that a mage appeared in the city of Pitiful. The girl was stunned and stopped for a moment. "What do you think happened to him?" Billow asked with a smile. Sisha replied that if his so-called connections fed him that dirty ear, then she is not going to see him at all. The Lord was instantly enraged. How dare she ignore his advice? His sister is just a vile witch. Sisha could only think of how she couldn't wait to see his face when she found the Angloria library. We have to wait, and magic will play an important role in becoming an empress. Not only that, but the magic will stop. It will be banned again, and by none other than Leip himself, who discovered and spread it. He banned it after defeating his older brother, who was working with dark mages to take over the younger's powers, but people only care about the outcome. Later she became again under the ban and appointed Power of Satan. Sisha told herself that her brother's reputation was above all else, and he would not spread rumors about magical abilities. She has to find a way to survive. Then suddenly address her as Milady. It was Lena, standing with a bucket of dirty clothes. She asked how her walk went. The girl noticed that the maid's hands were very torn. Lena said she was busy at the laundry and couldn't greet her upon arrival and apologized for that. She also added that this is already the last basket of laundry. Sisha stood upset by what she saw and heard. The lady was overwhelmed with emotions and hugged Lena, who definitely did not expect it, which is why she dropped the basket from her hands. The girl said that she should not have thought only about herself and that she also needed to become stronger in order to protect her people. She confidently stated that she plans to change the future. As soon as the lady finds the library, she will also find a way to get closer to Leip. Sisha dreamed of a world where magic is not forbidden. The girl makes sure that her dream comes true. She will create a dimension where everyone will use magic freely. The girls were still standing and hugging. Lena said that she will cheer for her lady. The future is carved in stone. It is something you create yourself. Leip was sitting in his estate and holding the gifted doll in his hands. Suddenly, someone spoke to him. The unknown person was surprised that the milord had returned so early. Thus, the unknown turned out to be the lord's assistant. His name is Rayon Genuard Personal. He had light blonde hair, bright green eyes, was wearing a white shirt and a green striped jacket, and was holding a book in his hands. He said today was a great day and my lord should make the most of it. Leip ordered him to collect all the information about the debris and dogged houses. Rayon mentally complained that the lord could not rest. The mage sat at his desk, still holding the doll in his hands. The assistant noticed this and asked, since when my lord was interested in wish toys, Rayon correctly noticed. Leip explained that someone gave it to him and he had no idea they were so popular. The aide added that they are very common on the streets, originating from another country, but now especially common in Chiron. It helped grow her hair. Leip suddenly spoke. Can divine powers help grow them in nails? The assistant thought about it. If it were possible, the pontiff would not go bald, he compared. Lord was surprised by this. He thought it sounded like blasphemy. Rayon denied this, to which Leip replied that it made him think about possible futures. No wonder. Do you mean the hair of the pontiff? The lord asked humorously. After a sarcastic joke, the assistant decided to return to work. What about magic? My lord suddenly asked. The assistant was instantly bewildered by such a question. He replied that he knew this very well, because he was a magician himself, and that it was impossible to grow hair with this. Magic works in the forms of fire, earth, and water. That is, you use these basic elements in simple forms. However, if you overdo it, it is possible to lose your mind. Magic is a force that people cannot control. That is why it is called the power of Satan. The Lord remembered his younger self, who was just beginning to realize that he was a mage. His assistant asked him what he was thinking about. Because Lipe went out of reality for a couple of minutes, Ryan's words brought him back to his senses. He continued that the Lord never uses charms of his own free will, and asked if there was anything he could do to help. My lord refused and ordered him to go, and Lipe remained alone in his office. He couldn't help thinking that she was able to regrow her hair, which is impossible with magic. However, she looked sincere, the expression on her face, the tone of her voice. If there really was a way to control charms, Sisha and her words flooded him. She is strange, he thought. Maybe you should visit her. Milady! Lena's scream was heard. She called her mistress to inform that a letter had arrived from Kalen's house, to which Sisha responded just as violently, because last week he ignored her. She had to dive into 4 lakes, for which the maids scolded her and threatened to fire her. In a black envelope with a purple stamp was a white sheet, on which everything was written in another language. Lipe asked if there would be any objection if he visited the lady tomorrow. That's it, the first stage is over, she spoke to Lena, immediately grabbing a pen and frantically waving it with the words that you need to write an answer urgently. Milady, Lena turned again. Are you sure that the answer should be exactly that? There was a letter on the table, also written in another language. It said, Of course you can. I'm free all day tomorrow, so come anytime. I will look forward to your visit. Let me know your tea and dessert preferences so I can prepare. Sisha asked what is wrong. Lena explained that the lady seemed to be dying to meet the Lord because she looked too excited. It also feels like the girl is ready to indulge all his whims. Enough, Sisha said. The lady grabbed her hair with her hands. The maid continued and asked if her mistress wanted to curry favor with Lord Kalen. How did she guess? The girl could not understand. Several white sheets were lying on the table. If she could influence it, she answered, a little detached and very elegant. Lipe held her letter, which told him to come whenever he wanted. He was met by Sisha and 2 other maidservants of House Arvin. Lord folded the paper under his jacket and apologized for his rudeness. He looked even better today, Lady Arwen thought. However, she has to keep calm, because she has to try her acting skills at the moment. So, gaining strength, the girl said that apologies would be unnecessary, because my lord had arrived even earlier than expected. He smiled sweetly again. As Lord Kalen thought, this is quite interesting. Sisha thought that Lena was absolutely right because Lipe was finally interested in what she had to say. I was wondering, said my lord, and continued. His attention was drawn to her words in their last meeting. Does he want to talk about it right here? The girl thought, and was upset by this, because there were many extra ears nearby, because no one knows the lady has magic. Suddenly, Sisha pounced on Lipe and covered his mouth with her palm, at which his grace's gaze instantly became shocked, and his dark hair stood on end. And the girl herself only told him to wait. The girl spoke intensely to the lord and offered him a tour of their greenhouse because she was very beautiful. Still holding her hand to his mouth, Sisha very persistently asked to be allowed to give her a detailed tour, and she was sure that he would be very interested. First, remove your hand from your mouth, he said not too clearly. Lady fussily apologized for it. Kieran's throne room. They wanted to hold the inauguration of the high priests on the day of the crescent moon. Kaylin sat on her exquisite throne and had this conversation with an unknown lord. Pan was most likely connected with religious activities. He said that it seemed to him that the mistress should have known that there would be a royal holiday that day. The man apologized for thinking that this was the last possible day for this. Kaylin thought to herself, how dare he treat her? After all, this gentleman is not a pontiff, but simply a high priest. It seems that her authority is at the bottom. Many people look down on the Empress, who does not even have the necessary support. There have already been 2 attempts to oust her from the throne, but they all ended in bloodshed. This is a tough, but the most reliable and fast tactic against enemies, but the owner realized that using it on a permanent basis would definitely not play into her hand, especially when the enemy she faced is a respected and beloved religious figure. The divine powers of the pontiff considered a miracle, which makes him a difficult opponent. Kaelin thought about it. "Why don't you hold the ceremony on the day of the crescent moon?" she asked. The high priest clenched his hand into a fist. He is sure that moving the ceremony for a week will not cause problems, or will it? The man thinks that the church is not as powerful as it seems. "How dare you?" said Mr. "You should watch your words more carefully, Your Majesty," he shouted. In an instant, the knight who was standing next to Kaelin ran up to the man. He put his sword to the enemy's neck and is ready to cut off his head at any moment. "Enough, Sidian," the mistress spoke. "This is Her Majesty's bodyguard that Sisha mentioned earlier. He had dark hair and emerald eyes." The Empress said that she was not looking for quarrels, and that the high priest should not forget who he was talking to. He became as pale as milk after the cold words of the mistress, so he agreed to postpone the ceremony for a week, and also added that he had heard that there were allegedly not enough priests in the palace. This was the purpose of his visit. Kaelin said she would look into it. She was beside herself with anger and grabbed the edge of the throne as if she was about to crush it, and immediately the hall emptied. The mistress's grip was so strong that she actually crushed the edge of the throne, and she remembered that she couldn't wait for Sisha Arvin to finally bring her promised evidence. The Empress really hopes she doesn't have to cut out Lady Arwen's tongue. The plot switches to the girl with Lord Leap. They had already reached the same greenhouse, but it was cool there and she began to shiver. They were sitting at the table, drinking tea with sweets. "Of course," said the Lord. It occurred to him that this was a good place to talk, so that there would be no extra ears. Sisha noticed that he was smart, because there were glass walls here and you could see when someone was around. Milord confirmed that she had intended to bring him here, to which she definitely agreed. The lady decided to move on to the main topic, namely the fact that Lord Kaelin wants to know what the mistress is trying to achieve. Of course, Leip was skeptical of her, because Sisha had spent more than 20 years among the common people. Because of this, she had to use information about wolf saws to win his favor. Like any other representative of the nobility, he should be interested in the intentions of the Empress. It was quite difficult for the nobility to accept the new ruler. This is their problem. Should they pledge their allegiance to her because of her leadership potential? Should it be further restricted? Looks like Leip isn't in love with Kaelin just yet, Sisha thought. This means that he has no reason to offer her his support. He needs to first gather all the information before making a decision. Sisha thought to herself. She asked if he was ready to listen to her, to which she received an ambiguous answer. Leip took a lock of her pink hair in his hand. But he said that at the moment he can't say for sure, regardless of whether she is feeding him sweet lies or telling the truth. Sisha got nervous. Did he not have enough information about wolf saws? Is it all a check? The girl could not understand. The Lord said that the doll she gave him did not fulfill his wishes, to which the girl replied that perhaps something else should be invented. Lady Arwen, he addressed her. He doesn't believe all the nonsense she tells him, but only the Lord thinks so. If he heard another reason, there would be more chances that he would believe. Sisha was horrified. Had my lord not believed her from the beginning? However, despite all this, Leip still came to her today. That could only mean one thing. Sisha confidently said that she used magic. "Now will you believe me?" she asked. Leip seemed pleased with this answer, but at the same time reacted sarcastically. He said it was impossible. Sisha couldn't stand it any longer, and said that she would tell him the truth and that it was directly related to charms. The lady put her hands on the table and leaned closer to the Lord and asked for a favor. She will tell him everything on the condition that he swear an oath in the name of their god Miel. This oath means that in case of its violation, a person will have to be ready to bear his wrath. Otherwise, she won't be able to trust him. Leip agreed and took an oath in the name of Miel. Sisha began her story. The imperial family never stood a chance against the church. This is due to the fact that the supporters of the emperor had some connection with her, but it does not apply to the current mistress. She has absolutely no support to speak of, said Leip. The lady agreed with this and added that in the future it could play into her hand. The ruler gets as much help as she needs. Thanks to magic, Sisha said confidently. If everything she says is true, it will be a big blow to the reputation of the Kaelin house. Their home will always support the church, which in turn will bless them. Their family kept this oath for generations. One of the two duchies of the empire, it was able to win the trust of the majority due to its close relationship with the church. Time to get the most important ace up the sleeve, Sisha thought. However, knowingly, he swore his loyalty to Kalin not only because of love. Someday people will understand that magic is not the power of Satan, that divine power and magic can coexist. Most likely he already understood it then, thought Sisha. He knew that Kalin's support would benefit him and his house far more. Besides, the girl started and asked him, "Doesn't Lord Z want to eat his cake and this candy?" Especially after she found a way to control magic. "And how do you do it?" he asked with surprise. He put his hands on the table and approached the girl, who dropped the candy in surprise. Usually the Lord doesn't listen to her at all, but now he was curious, she thought. "In order to control magic, you need to say a spell," said the lady. Leip looked at her with interest, and she herself liked that now she was holding the situation in her own hands. Magic itself is just a lump of energy that is difficult to subdue, and if you overdo it, the result will not be good. And in order to control this unbridled power, Sisha said that the Angloria Empire had created a magic subjugation spell. Leip replied that they needed spells in an ancient language. It's an interesting theory, but where do they get them? This is where the service she asked Leip will come in handy. Sisha wants him to help her find an ancient library. The Lord's face immediately changed, because he did not understand what was being said. There will be enough spellbooks. The girl clenched her hand into a fist and sank into thought. She sincerely hopes that the efforts made to learn Anglorian were not in vain. Lady can't wait to hold these books in her hands. Leip asked if the lady used hair growth spells. Sisha brushed off this question, because the Lord wants too much and cannot tell everything yet. Since she has not yet completed all of her goals, she cannot reveal all of the cards in her sleeve. Sisha hardly lies. Anyway, if they find the library. The flowers in the greenhouse were wonderful. Just now the sun's rays were falling on them from the large windows of the room. "Do you have any suggestions on how we can find the library?" the Lord asked. Sisha only knows that it is hidden under water, and it is also necessary to use magic to find a passage, but she assured him not to worry, because she can use her charms for that. This did not seem like such a difficult task for my lord, and he asked why she needed his help. "He has the necessary information, namely about the library," Sisha continued. The library was hidden under the pond where he used to walk with his mother, a place full of memories. Leip left reality for a moment and remembered his unpleasant past. "It seems that you already know the answer to your question," said the Lord. The lady denied that she knew anything more, for that was all she had ascertained at that moment, and she had no thought of deceiving him. Leip just smiled sweetly as always. He said he believed her. Sisha couldn't wait to find out the answer, but the Lord assured or lied that he did not remember anything. He got up from the table and was about to leave, as if nothing had happened. Sisha earnestly asked him to strain his head so that he would remember, and also confidently said that he was just thinking about it. Milord replied that it might take several days to remember it. "Maybe tomorrow?" the lady asked nervously. Leip suggested that it would take at least a week. The girl began to shake his back and worriedly said that it was necessary tomorrow, or at least in the next 3 days, but she said that she would come to him after this time. She cannot wait that long and asked him to agree. Leip said it would be an honor to welcome the lady back to his estate. The girl exhaled and mentally compared this situation to a job interview. Suddenly, a man spoke to Sisha. He didn't know she was hosting a guest in the conservatory. Was this the same friend mentioned earlier? The girl was amazed, because this should not have happened. It was her dear brother Billow. "What is he doing here?" He asked if she wanted to introduce him to her friend. Billow stood in front of Leip and assumed that he was close enough to his sister to visit their house so easily. He asked to tell him from which family he came. "Are we friends?" Leip asked Sisha funny, and she, in turn, did not know where the children were. She did not tell her brother that she was expecting someone. Few people had seen Leip in person, and because he was her guest, her brother decided that he was someone unimportant. They came to her. "Why can't they talk later?" said the girl. The boys were still facing each other. Billow held out his hand. Lord Kalin remained silent. Her brother said there was no need to talk if he didn't want to. Sisha asked Billow to leave here, to which he replied that his sister was not brought up with etiquette, because she lived most of her life as a Christian, and the girl herself was thinking about making a good impression on Leip. "I'm a little disappointed," said one of the boys. Sisha apologized to her brother. Billow said that everything was fine and they were all going through it. The lady began her speech. "Your goal in life is to humiliate those weaker than you again and again. This is the only way you can stand out from the crowd. It's a shame I didn't notice it earlier." "What?" asked the annoyed brother. Sisha came to him and continued. "You assumed this gentleman was my friend and then made fools of yourself and me. You wanted to see if my friend was a noble, right? I know your type." The girl approached her brother and was very angry with him. He questioned her about idiots, to which she replied that she meant it with the best of intentions, but he would need a crystal layer. Maybe that way he could read his atmosphere. Couldn't he tell by the look on their faces? Flowers and trees have bigger brains than he has. Because of him, I had to edit the annual family budget. So why should he give her a damn break? Billow was surprised by his sister's boldness. Everyone was shocked by these words, and especially by her. Sisha took Leip's hand and asked to lead her. Billow became furious and asked where his sister's manners were and apologized for her rudeness. He invited the Lord to a cup of tea to better apologize. Leip refused this offer, explaining that he got a headache from talking to idiots. Billow got angry, and the Lord added that he has no time for fools. Lord took Sisha's hand more firmly and asked if it was time for them to leave and addressed her as Milady. The girl agreed with this and they left Billow alone in the greenhouse. They walked hand in hand together, the girl assured that it was not her, but someone else, because she usually speaks politely and politely. Leip replied that the lady was more combative than he had imagined, to which the lady replied that she was only looking out for herself. Leip said that he was never one to judge others based on the things of others, but he would be disappointed if she remained silent. Sisha asked if that was why he said he was disappointed. The lady said that she must have told him everything she thought about him. She will wait 3 days, and then maybe everything will work out. She was hoping it would get a little better, but that was 3 days ago. Sisha arrived at the Kalin estate. She was met by a butler and informed that the Lord had to urgently go south on an important matter. "Are you kidding me?" she asked. The valet denied this and said he was sorry, but it was an emergency. Sisha desperately tried to think of reasons for all this. Maybe he wanted to surprise her? Maybe he is hiding in this carriage to see her reaction. The butler apologized and closed the door with himself and assured that there was no one there. The servant handed her a black envelope and said it was from the Lord. Sisha immediately opened the envelope and said that he would definitely not leave without warning. Lyle and Leiden rivers, often visited as they flow through the capital. Elve Lake. I often had picnics there during my studies. Lake Vitrivia. I have been there many times to admire the daffodils in bloom. Lake Compedial, famous for its winter sunsets. It was in the letter. Sisha was angry because he wrote as a tourist blogger, talking about the rivers and lakes of Kirona. She tried to calm herself with thoughts about how long it took to get from Los Angeles to San Francisco. It only takes 6 hours. As far as she knows, Leip rides a horse like a bullet train. The lady asked if the servant knew when the Lord would return. He replied that he would return in 7 or 10 days. She bowed. The lady fell to the floor as she realized that in 10 days she was scheduled to meet Kalin. The butler was shocked by this and asked if she was okay. Sisha was depressed. Let even this be a very important matter, she thought. Don't worry, though, the lady knows where Leip went. He went to his older brother. Lord was on a horse in the company of his assistant Rayon. He asked if he was ashamed of letting Lady Arwen down. This must be an important meeting, suggests the servant, but no matter how important it is, nothing is more important than family. In the novel, Leip receives a letter telling him that his brother Alois is wounded. As soon as he learns about it, he immediately goes south to visit him. Rayon thought. His lord is so worried about his brother, but they are not very close at the same time. He is trying to understand how it is, because he is the only one in the family. They should arrive the day after tomorrow. It would be much more convenient to ride in a carriage, Rayon noticed, but at the same time, we would lose the opportunity to admire these beautiful flowers. The assistant agreed and said that they should hurry. Leip squeezed the saddle strap and thought. He did everything he could for Lady Arwen. told her he'd help her find the Angloria library, but didn't promise to give her the exact location. The Lord cannot fully trust her, and especially her motives. That is why he gave her that letter with rivers and lakes. He will be able to understand her true intentions by watching her check his list, however. Suddenly, he has flashbacks of Shisha, namely the time they held hands. Immediately, Light became even more depressed. He was not comfortable with canceling the meeting. It was rude of him, and he could not get out of his head. Was it because she said she knew how to control magic? However, he knows one thing for sure. There was no confidence in her face when Sisha asked to find the library, and it wasn't because she was having doubts about what to say to him. And it's definitely not because of the fact that at one moment she is cold as ice, and at another she is surprisingly shy and sarcastic. Suddenly, something came over my lord, and he started laughing non-stop, which scared Rayan, and he asked if everything was fine with him and what happened to him. Lena was worried and turned to her mistress and asked if she was still suffering in her bed. Meanwhile, Sisha herself took a strange pose on the couch and looked nowhere. It had been 8 days since Leip's departure, and 2 days before his possible arrival, she had written to Kalen. There was a letter with lines crossed out on the table. All the places that the lady managed to check turned out to be empty. Why does Lord Kalen's brother hate him so much? She didn't even realize that when she read the novel. Leip followed his older brother to the south to visit him. Memories began. The elder brother for some reason shouted at Leip and asked him to leave here and wished him to die and never come back here. The whole plot develops on the eve of this dramatic event. Tomorrow, Her Majesty and the 2 duchies will hold a willing tournament. Leip was sitting on the ground. "Are you just going to sit here and suffer?" an unknown woman asked him. This is a memory from the plot of the novel, where he became the second main character. "I want to see you on my side," she said, and also invited him to join the walk. Lena heard that Lord Kalen was to attend the Masquerade ball today. Sisha was surprised by this. The maid added that he must be there. She is not sure that he is suitable for her lady, but she really wants to meet him. The lady threw her arms around Lena, who did not expect this, and thought about whether she really likes him romantically, because she did not think that Sisha would be so happy about it. The maid grabbed her by the shoulders and confidently said that she would do everything with her until the evening, so that she would be the most beautiful and brightest at the ball. Sisha was very grateful to her, but wondered why. Lena replied that she would do everything so that the Lord would regret leaving her lady alone twice. The girl again sincerely thanked for the concern. "Sisha will do anything to get Leip's attention." Lena really did a good job because the lady looked perfect. She was wearing a light blue dress, a white mask on her face, a necklace with a purple stone, and she was holding a glass of sparkling wine in her hand. Leip was nowhere to be seen. Didn't he come after all? There was smoke in an unknown room and covered part of the portrait. "Why did you call me?" A voice came from the other side of the room. It was Leip who came to his father. He asked sarcastically that he could not call his son to drink tea with him. Lord noticed in his head that his papa always smoked in his mother's room, as if he was trying so hard to get rid of the guilt. The father noticed that they were both embarrassed by this situation. "How is Alois?" he suddenly asked. Leip seemed to have sunk into the ground. Lord was very depressed, but managed to squeeze out the following. "It is difficult to say how his brother feels, but he is definitely more comfortable among the knights than at home." Rowan, when did everything go haywire? And how to fix it all, the head of the family thought about it. That portrait showed his wife, who most likely died. The father left the room saying that he had better get out of here. The Lord was left alone in the room, and suddenly it was excruciatingly painful. Something stung him in the area of the chest and so hard that he fell to his knees, but he was able to get up and pick up a black and white mask. After that, he went away. Events returned to the ball. Everyone was having fun and telling funny stories, such as someone going to the cemetery and seeing bodies bouncing. Sisha was in their company and was already not very sober from the amount of sparkling wine she had drunk. The girl was already the soul of the company and even wanted to teach them to play I Never Never. However, the thought that she had to find the library did not leave her. She did not want to die, but if it was meant to be, so the lady decided to enjoy every moment before her death. The lady exclaimed that Sisha likes to play while drinking. And the next game will be, she finished. She had to have fun, that was all she could think of. Someone from the company offered to play supervisor. This is her last night in this life. Meetings in the company continued. Someone else offered to play paranoia. Another ordered to listen to questions that would be spoken in a whisper. And finally, Sisha leaves the hall and asks herself if she had enough fun. The lady went out to the balcony, where she was unexpectedly met by Leap, but she did not yet know that it was him, because he had put on a black and white mask. "Are you drunk?" the girl thought, and began to ask him to move away from the railing, because it did not look very reliable. "There are restrooms here. Should he go home? Can you call him a taxi?" "That is, a carriage," said Sisha. "Are you always so curious?" the Lord asked, and the girl could not understand what was happening. "You're starting to get on my nerves! Throw away!" he shouted. Suddenly, cracks began to appear on the railing. "No!" Sisha screamed out of desperation and begged him to take her hand to keep him from falling. Unpleasant memories of his older brother began to return to Leip. The mask flew off the Lord, and the girl now clearly saw who was in front of her. "Why are you so unapproachable?" Annoyed, she asked what he wanted to do. Sisha grabbed his waist, and they continued to stand like that for a little while. Appeared in the hall among the crowd, who simply slipped out of Sisha's hands. Is he not injured? Suddenly he ran in an unknown direction. The Lord had never felt so alone among other people. Maybe it's worth just putting up with it and putting up with it. But at the same time, he doesn't want anyone to see him like that. Suddenly, Sisha appeared from somewhere and grabbed him. "Are you out of your mind?" Malice escaped from her lips. She waved her hands in front of him and scolded him for not leaving when she asked him to. He knew they were about to break. The girl was incredibly angry because he could have died, and he was very lucky that this did not happen. Lord was surprised by how she cares for him. The door suddenly opened. It was an unknown butler who asked if everything was all right. He asked them to go to the hall, but Sisha refused because she wanted to breathe fresh air and only asked him if he could take her to a quieter place. Leap was lost in thought. He's the one who almost died here, so why is she crying instead of him? They went downstairs and perched near the steps to the estate. Sisha ordered the Lord to breathe more slowly and calmly. The lady took his hand and poked a point on his palm with her finger and told him to breathe in time with her knocks. He was to inhale for the count of 3 and exhale for the count of 4. Lord already looked much better, and she was happy about that. And now it was her turn to catch her breath, immediately falling to her knees in front of the stairs. Poor her hand, who knew it was so heavy? As soon as the feelings for Leip passed, Sisha started to get drunk again. Life doesn't always go the way we want it to. She understands him, because she will also die soon. Because she promised the Empress that she would find proof that magic could be controlled, but she never did. If she does not find the library within 2 days, then Her Majesty will tear out her tongue and punish her with death. Leip was shocked by this. However, Sisha had plenty of hope, and she stood up and raised her clenched hand into a fist. She came to one conclusion at this ball. If she is destined to die, then she should use her last days to the fullest, because nothing will change from the fact that she will only be angry. She just wants to convey to him that he should not miss his opportunities, because once you look back and understand that it was worth it, maybe she'd better stay out of her business. Sisha knows that Kaylin will be cheering for Leip at the Willing tournament tomorrow, and yet the girl confirmed that he has all the opportunities to go forward. She thinks to herself, Kaylin will do a good deed and help him get back on his feet. She sat down next to him with his permission. Then he continues his monologue in his head. It is Leip who will take advantage of the opportunity. He followed the path of magic. The girl remembered her real self. At the time, she did not take advantage of the opportunities given to her. Her professor suggested that she go on to graduate school, but instead, she decided to go to work. There was a time when she just wanted to disappear. Her head was full of bad thoughts, and there was no way she could get rid of them. When you let them get the better of you, they take over your mind. Leip asked how she got over it. Finally, he treats her with respect, and not as usual with rudeness. He apologized for it to her. She said that at that time, she was thinking about the people who loved and cared for her. And the girl thought about the good memories they made. That is, he should always think about the good? He asked. Of course not. They just have pleasant and easy memories. You need to think about what motivates you to go on, and then the causes of suffering will be forgotten. Not necessarily forever, but it won't bother you so much in the future. She asked him to think about it, because he feels pain and despair, because he has never been truly happy. You have to remind yourself that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Leap isn't sure he has the right to keep happy memories. What if he feels guilty about them? His mother, old memories. Stop mentioning her. Little Leip and his father were standing in the room with the portrait. The boy held him by the sleeve of his jacket and asked why his mother had disappeared so unexpectedly, and why he and his older brother were not looking for her. Why did she leave? His father ordered him to remember his words. If you dwell on the past, you will not be able to live in the present. After these words, he went away and left the little lord alone. Leap caught herself thinking that she didn't know why he was telling her everything. Sisha asked what happened to his mother. He replied that nothing of the sort had happened, and that he had already taken a lot of her time. Sisha said she was sure his mother would want to be remembered fondly. Lord was stunned. The girl continued that it would be sad to close happy memories because of guilt. If she were his mother, she would like to be talked about and remembered with warmth. The image of him and his mother playing in the room came back to Leip. Leip looked at her with interest. A shooting star flew behind them. Sisha asked if he had seen her, and she would have given anything for a blanket and a glass of mulled wine right now. Another old memory. Mom showed little Leip how a star falls, while hugging him at the same time. She suggested that he come and see them sometime when his father is not busy. This is her wish. Sisha smiled sweetly, and added that it was her wish. She was still a little red from the amount of alcohol she had consumed. Leip leaned over to her and said that she should go to Lake Vitrivia. This very place is associated with memories of his mother. The Lord realized that now everything was clear. He wants to see her warm smile like the sun and shining like the stars. However, that was all the information he could tell her, which meant their paths would not cross again, he thought. But suddenly, Sisha pounced on him with a hug and thanked him for this information. Surprised, Leip pushed the girl away and held her by the shoulders and said he hoped it wasn't too late. Sisha said that it is not too late, but it is just the right time. She was so happy that she thoughtlessly threw herself at him with her arms, just so she wouldn't offend him. The girl thought and said that he needs to be more confident in himself, because no matter how reclusive he is, many people are on his side. Sisha thought that many readers loved and rooted for Leip more than the male lead, including herself. The lady confidently exclaimed that they all loved him. Lord repeated her words and asked, "Love?" The girl confirmed that it was. Leip was embarrassed and asked if she was too. Sisha confidently answered that yes, because she was always for the second main character, that is for Lord Kalin, who supported him from the very beginning. My lord bent down and took the lady's hand, saying that he had forgotten the main part of the masquerade ball. Sisha clearly did not expect this. Next time we will meet. Someone was trying to wake up my lady. She just started to open her eyes, but she couldn't understand what had happened, because had morning already come? And in her hands she held Leip's masquerade mask. What happened last night? Lena asked if her lady managed to meet Lord Kalin. At that moment, Sisha had already gotten out of bed and was drinking something hot, because smoke was coming from her cup. She answered ambiguously, because she did not remember anything due to the amount of alcohol she had consumed. The maid was holding the same black and white mask in her hands, and before that she thought it belonged to Leip. The girl was surprised by this. Sisha began to remember fragments of last night, namely how she saved the Lord and his words about Lake Vitrivia. Subsequently, she ordered Lena to urgently bring her the letter that the Lord had given her. The maid immediately ran after him. The girl was holding the same letter in her hands. And here it was, she said, the place where he admired daffodils. Sisha didn't fully understand what exactly made her change her mind, but it must be it. It's exactly where he used to hang out with his mom, which means there's a bibliography of beats there. Lake Vitrivia. The lady arrived at the same lake. She had her hair in a ponytail, a dark suit, and a red cape on top. She could not imagine that this place is so beautiful. But Sisha was definitely not alone there. Someone was hiding behind one of the trees. Perhaps it seemed to her that someone else had arrived here since the morning. The girl threw off her cape and ran into the lake. It is hardly noticeable, but the petals float in one place on top of the water. It should be there. Suddenly, someone shouted her name. Was it Lipe? Impossible. Now he was supposed to be at a willing tournament with the others, and he never called her by name. The Lord is always polite and withdrawn, which is usually a disadvantage, and the mage never used his spells around Kalin until he had fully learned to control them. However, the man was following her until she saw it and gathered her thoughts. It doesn't make sense. However, it was still Lipe who grabbed her forearm with one hand and her waist with the other. Sisha looked at him with surprise. What is he doing here? After all, it should be at the tournament. As it turned out, the Lord does not know how to swim, and the girl begged to let her go. They will drown now. The water began to evaporate, and the girl was finally able to scream for him to let her go. But then she saw that it was actually a spell. Lipe used his magic on her for the first time. He completely drained the lake, but at the same time he still did not let go of her waist. Suddenly, the Lord began scolding the girl. "What are you doing anyway?" he shouted. Sisha did not miss a beat and started to defend herself and asked about him. Why is he here and not at the tournament? Why so interested? Milord was distraught. Lipe can't swim. How dare he jump into the water? After all, he could easily die. Lord denied that she was the one who was going to die here and also looked very upset. Sisha dismissed the fact that she can swim, but he's right, and they don't teach it in this dimension. They hunt sorcerers here just like in her world. Witches are hunted, and to decide whether this person is a magician or not, they simply throw him into the water and see if he swims, and those who can are considered wizards. They stopped using this method, but they still can't swim here. Sisha justified herself by saying that she is perfectly trained in this and everything is fine. Milord suddenly fell to his knees. The girl was worried about him. He put his hands to his face and said that she had told him last night that she would most likely die. Did she really say that? Lipe confirmed this and added that she was going to die if she didn't find the library. He asked if she really didn't remember it, to which Sisha replied that she simply could not remember everything completely. But she could remember part of the conversation. She was upset by this because she did not want the truth about alcohol to come out. The lady apologized for what happened last night. Lipe confirmed that he also does not remember anything else. Does he really remember nothing? The Lord looks like a lost puppy right now. Is he all right? The girl thought about this and said that the events of last night were unimportant, and the main thing was that she did not do rude things. My lord agreed with this. Still, the main thing is that he wanted to save her. Her words made Lipe visibly ashamed. For some time, the Lord was silent, but he pretended to agree with this. Sisha thought about whether she was crushing on him. However, it doesn't matter, because now everything should go smoothly. By using magic to save her, Lipe proved that he is a wizard, in other words. He decided to follow the path of studying charms. Tomorrow she will take him to meet Kalin, and then he can translate the ancient language books for us. Sisha will support him, and he will be able to revive the greatness of magic and win the heart of the mistress, and after that, they will live happily ever after. Lipe took off his jacket and put it on the girl. But before that, she said that it was truly a fairy tale ending, and at first she didn't even notice what he had done. But when it came to her, she blurted out that everything was fine, to which the Lord asked to let him lend her a jacket. Lipe also jumped into the water with her. He is also cold. His shirt is soaked through, which is showing through. Sisha looked at him, and when he asked what they were going to do next, she anxiously answered what he meant. Lord said that he revealed his weakness to her, and now she knows that he is a mage. "Why is this a weakness?" the girl asked with surprise. "I have magic too," she said, and she made an earthly gesture with her hands, showing her index finger and thumb, and said that this would soon bring him fame. They need to find a source of water, more precisely, magic. Sisha feels it. Magic! Lipe ran his hand along the walls of the lake, and a white structure began to appear there, saying, "Isn't that what she's looking for?" For this, he used his magic. Sisha was very impressed by this sight. It was indeed the Library of Anglia. They opened the door. The Lord noticed that the library seemed to have remained intact, to which the girl replied that it was all because of magic. They found a place full of books with various spells. The amazing thing is that they still managed to find her, Sisha said. Sisha thought about saying it as if they could only do it with Leap's help. Thank you that I did not die yesterday, and thanks to you my tongue will not be torn off tomorrow, she said to herself. The Lord has already opened the book and everything will start from this moment. My Lord said it was an ancient language, but he had never seen such symbols before. He is much smarter than he thinks. After 3 months, Lipe will be able to understand the Anglorian language. Meanwhile, the Lord was surprised, and Sisha only asked to let her have a look. Her time has come to enter the plot as a minor character, while the Lord and the main characters will continue to drive this story. On one page, there was a picture of a chicken in a pan and text. Sisha read it. Chicken noodle soup. Anglorians like to use it to cure colds. It uses a whole chicken and various vegetables, which fills the stomach and thereby soothes the soul. This soup will quickly put you on your feet. Lord asked if he was sleeping. Sisha denied it. He could not imagine that Lady Arwen knew Anglorian. What are you trying to say? I was just mumbling to myself, she told him. Sisha doesn't want to interfere in the plot anymore. Let her disappear in peace. This book is definitely not about Anglorians eating noodle soup. This is a very rare book. Light put his hand to his chin and said that she explained the content of the book perfectly. Sisha was going crazy inside herself. What did I just say? The lady tried to divert the Lord's attention. Leap repeated a sentence from the book, which she translated word for word. Sisha went crazy. It is only a matter of time before the Lord will understand the grammar of Anglorian, and if he now realizes that the lady knows this language, then it will be pointless to deny it. She knew where that library was, Leap said, and it continued to amaze him. This is the language of an empire that disappeared more than 5,000 years ago. How were you able to learn it? He asked in disbelief, and fell silent. Sisha could not understand why he was silent. Is he angry because she can't explain anything to him? Suddenly, Light pressed her against the bookshelves and held out his hand. They were both embarrassed by this and blushed. The Lord backed away from her sharply and explained his actions by saying that he wanted to check her temperature because she was soaked through. My Lord did not want to pressure Lady Arwen in any way.